Good evening. Jeanne MacKay, 13428 Lake Avenue. Members of council, at our last council meeting, Kevin Young addressed the fact that the current Lakewood emergency room is not a true emergency room since it is no longer attached to a full-service hospital. I can tell you that in speaking with hundreds of residents while gathering referendum signatures, there were many people who did not realize or understand how the emergency room had changed or what was going on with the hospital in general. Not everyone in our community can pay attention. Therefore, it's a moral obligation and duty of this city and council, since most of you voted to remove hospital services, to act responsibly now and properly inform the residents about when to use a standalone ER and when to go directly to a full-service hospital. At the last council meeting, Councilwoman Marks responded to Mr. Young's story of his mother driving his father to the emergency room, stating that we have great EMS services in Lakewood and no one should drive to the emergency room if having a heart attack or stroke. The fact is, not everyone calls emergency services when they or a loved one is feeling ill. Here's a case in point. A few years ago, my neighbor and yours, Mayor, a well-educated, very savvy, professional gentleman in his 80s, drove himself to Lakewood Hospital, parked his car in the parking garage after hitting a few things along the way, and miraculously walked himself into the ER while he was having a stroke. He had neighbors all around him he could have called, EMS a phone call away. However, that evening he chose to take himself to the hospital, and he told me later that he was not feeling that bad. This story illustrates that people still do choose to go to the emergency room on their own. For whatever reason, whether it be an unwanted EMS fee or they just are not feeling that bad, to suggest it's common practice to call EMS in such cases, as my neighbor and Mr. Young's story clearly illustrates, it's not reality. Ms. Marks also suggested that Mr. Young write a letter to the Lakewood Observer to let people know they should call EMS services if they feel they are having a stroke, a heart attack, or other emergency. The moral obligation to inform the residents clearly rests with this administration and council, who chose to close the hospital and diminish the ER, not Mr. Young. Mr. Bullock last meeting accused Mr. Young of grandstanding for raising this important issue and informing council of a recent fatality that may have been avoided had a person gone to a full-service hospital. I totally disagree with Mr. Bullock's assertion. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the moment we become silent about things that matter. In order to avoid any future disasters that may result from this lack of knowledge, isn't it worth a simple notice mailed out to all residents clearly defining what conditions can and cannot be handled at the current Lakewood emergency room? I respectfully request you let the people know. It could save someone's life. And one more thing. The downtown district wayfinding sign located at the corner of Bunce and Detroit when you're heading north says hospital with an arrow pointing west. Since we no longer have a hospital, shouldn't that sign be removed? Thank you.
I would like to